Spider-Man Homecoming was released in 2017 and stars Tom Holland, and in this movie we follow a young Peter Parker as he tries to prove that he is more than just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Alright, so now we are in Tom Holland's Spider-Verse. We finally get the MCU Spider-Man movies as we finally start to review them. I'm really excited because I'm so looking forward to talking about Tom Holland. Let's get right off the bat. Tom Holland is incredible in this movie. He is like one of the most perfect castings for a character I've ever seen. I mean, he is simply incredible as Spider-Man. What I love is that we finally follow a young Peter Parker. You know, when you look at Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, you seem like they seem so much older than they give off, and like they always are graduating or they're already in college. But this, we finally follow a 15-year-old Peter Parker, which is when, you know, Peter gets his powers in the comics. So I'm so happy that we finally get to experience high school young Peter Parker. You can tell how much fun he is having with this role, and I love what they did with Peter, that he loves being Spider-Man. You know, sometimes in the other movies he kind of feels like he's being forced to being Spider-Man. He kind of doesn't want to do it. But in this one, he very much looks forward to it. Like, he's skipping school, skipping classes because he wants to be a web slinger. He wants to be a superhero. And I love that. That's such a different pace from the other movies. Another huge positive for this movie is the casting itself. Marissa Tomei as Aunt May is incredible. Now, I still think Rosemary Harris just gives off this perfect Aunt May vibe, but I love how they casted a younger Aunt May. I love it so much. She really brings this warmth to a young Peter Parker, and you can tell she's a really good parental figure for him. The rest of the casting itself is also really good. Ned Leeds is incredible. I love this character because not only is he Peter's best friend, he also represents us. He's asking all the questions that we've always wanted to ask Spider-Man, and the fact that he does that, I love him even more. And the comedy that he brings is simply amazing and just freaking hilarious.
Do you lay eggs? What? No.
Now, as great as Tom Holland is, and he's amazing, pun intended, Michael Keaton completely steals this movie. I mean, wow, what an incredible performance as Vulture. We finally get Vulture on the big screen, something that Raimi wanted to do for Spider-Man 4, but we finally see it come to life here in Spider-Man Homecoming. Just such a great villain, such a simple origin story about how he got screwed by the Avengers and now he wants to get payback by simply just, you know, being like a weapons manufacturer and kind of sells these illegal weapons, these illegal alien weapons, and he does it. Such a simple story, gets its point across, and his performance is great. Michael Keaton just knows how to portray comic book characters, and he shows that here. He is so creepy and menacing, but at the same time, you kind of feel sympathy for him because he's just looking out for his family. So that, I mean, it's just such a great balance. And not to mention that scene at the stoplight when he finally figures out who Spider-Man is. That is simply one of the best scenes I have ever seen in a comic book movie. It's so simple, and it's just so great. I love it because you see how Peter is just so nervous, doesn't really know how to get ahead of the situation because he's 15 years old, and obviously the experienced villain just knows how to figure it out, and he's just super creepy about it. This is another big positive for me. I love the setting of the movie, and what I mean by that is I love how they put Peter in high school. It's like you get high school Peter Parker. I kind of touched on that when I talked about Tom Holland. But I just love how they use high school as a huge plot point for the movie. You know, when they're going to DC for the decathlon, you know, when Homecoming is coming. I love how they use it to their advantage. You know, you don't just say, oh yeah, he's in high school, but you kind of focus outside of school. No, I love how they just go, no, you know what? We're going to put the high school front and center. We're going to put his education front and center, where how he's skipping classes, how he's getting in trouble with the principal, how he's in detention, how Homecoming's a big factor, you know, the awkwardness of being a teenager in high school. I love how they use that because what makes Spider-Man so great is that he's so relatable, how he's in college, how he's struggling to get ends meet, how he's in classes, how he's trying to, you know, get his crush to like him. It's just relatable to kids and to adults because they experience that. And the fact that they use that is awesome, and I'm glad we finally got, you know, first-hand experience for that. Alright, so let me get to my negatives. These are just a little bit nitpicky, but I just gotta talk about them. As much as I love Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., I love the chemistry between them. You really get this, you know, this parental relationship, you know, and I love that. However, I'm just not a big fan of Spider-Man getting all this high-tech stuff. You know, it's just not for me. You know, I don't want to sound like the old guy, like, oh, back in my day, Spider-Man used to do stuff by himself. But I just like how in the other movies he has to do it by himself, how he is a young kid and he has to figure it out and he has to be the hero for himself. In this one, you kind of feel like, yeah, he's in danger, but at the same time, you don't really feel like he's truly doing it by himself. You know, he has Tony Stark with him. He has that amazing suit with Karen, and I love Karen, but it's just not Spider-Man. Not to mention he has Ned with him. It just seems that he has more help than usual, and it's a nice change of pace, and I mean, what are you going to do in the MCU when there's literally 1,000 heroes flying around New York City? But at the same time, I like it when Spider-Man is by himself and needs to figure out stuff for himself. And this is just another nitpicky thing. The action scenes are great, but they just aren't super memorable. I mean, I love the final fight scene on the plane and the final fight with Vulture, but other than that, you really don't get really a ton of great stuff. What I really do love is I love, you know, the different variations of his web shooting. It's not just simple web swing, like the ricochet web, taser webs, all the different stuff that they explored. That was pretty cool. I actually like that. But, you know, the action scenes weren't really, it just seems they weren't really going that extra mile. I thought they could have done way more with Spider-Man, but, you know, that's just me. Overall, guys, Spider-Man Homecoming was awesome to watch. I'm so glad I got to revisit this, and this is definitely a movie I would happily pop in again and again. It's just such a great rewatchable movie. You know, there are some nitpicky things, like, again, I want Spider-Man to be an individual hero, but, you know, it's just a matter of opinions, and I thought the action scenes could have been a little better, except for the final fight scene. That was awesome. But such a great movie. Literally the first great structured Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2, which is, wow, that is really saying something. But I'm glad Spider-Man is back in the forefront of Marvel where he belongs, and hopefully he gets to stay there for a long time. But I'm going to give it an A-. It is such a great movie. It's just awesome. It's just, oh man, it's just such a feel-good movie to finally see a young Peter Parker and just such a grounded Spider-Man movie, and I love it. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.